PodcastCoug Season 2, Episode 7.
You're listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, PodcastCoug.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. You are listening to the PodcastCoug. I am James Laurie, the PodcastCoug. Welcome back to another episode. This is Season 2, Episode 7, and we are all things Cougar football. 30 minutes of Coug talk. We're talking about the previous game against Oregon and, of course, the upcoming game against Cal, the Berkeley boys down in Berkeley. And, this is just your weekly to get you through to the next game. And, of course, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you like what you hear on the PodcastCoug, on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Twitter, right? Facebook, you get it all, right? Just hit the subscribe and those episodes are going to automatically come to you. So here we go. Are we ready for this? Oregon, Washington State 33, the Ducks 10, and it was the fewest points scored by Oregon in 8 years. That's right, 8 years, fewest points scored. That was, of course, 10. And we didn't expect that, right? The Cougs offense delivered on the very first play from scrimmage. Luke to Jamal Morrow for a 41-yard. It was a catch-run touchdown. Just simply amazing, unexpected. We talked about starting right out of the gate, and I'll tell you, we did it. Right out of the gate, that's right. The Cougs scored on their first possession, and then even every quarter, we scored on the first possession of every quarter, and each score accomplished something a little different. Like I said, 41-yard pass from Luke to Jamal Morrow really provided that early lead. Good start, especially in the Cougs' first road game in front of what started out as a rocking crowd in Autzen, 57,000. And of course, one of the Pac-12's loudest venues at Autzen. And, the Oregon's fans, they really reached their highest decibels late in the first quarter when the Ducks ran off what was their only points. And they took an early lead at 10-7, and that was the last time we heard from the fans. I mean, we just quieted that stadium. And then, they cleared out the fourth quarter. So then the offense was literally non-existent. And then who stepped up? The defense. Our defense, Speedy D, Grinch, big time against an Oregon offense that entered the football game averaging, 50 points and 537 offensive yards per game. The Cougs defense allowed only 277 offensive yards and shut out Oregon through really the final three quarters of the game. And that's right. Yeah, we shut them out the final three quarters of the game. Wow. If you had told me that was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed you. Guys, we're having we're having the best years ever. It could be the very best year in the history of Cougar football. We don't know yet, but it could be. You never know how far we can go. We're heading in that direction. It's possible. Our defense is playing better. However, our offense is not quite up to 100%. And you know what? We didn't even play our best offense of the year, and we killed them. We killed them. The defense was flying around, and what about Jahad Woods? I know, right? So the first road trip of the year, Washington State pulled out and with the win and we jumped to 6-0, first time since the Sun Bowl in the 2001 season, and we did it on a Saturday when Oklahoma and Michigan lost. So guess what? We're number 8 in the top 10. And when was the last time we could say that? We are in the top 10, and we're still getting used to it, right? So we're now, of course, bowl eligible, and it's October, right? So here we are, October. Now, what did we learn from Oregon? The defense is rock solid. That was the big takeaway. It's the real deal. We saw the SC game, but it is a proven fact about our defense. And this is an emotionally mature team, right? We wondered how well the Cougs would do after that killer win over, at then number 5 USC, like I talked about last week. But in truth, they did it. The team showed up Saturday, and they're an emotionally mature team, and they're not going to allow themselves to get too high or low, regardless of who it beats and how it does it. I think Leach has got them just wired up great. And forget the noise, Biggest mistake is reading the media, listening to me, right? And listening to podcasts. It's a big mistake. Your head gets too big, you don't show up, and the other team like Cal will just roll us over. I don't think that's going to happen. So the team celebrated their win last Saturday, and by Sunday, guess what? Back to work. When they reconvened, they began prepping for Oregon, and USC was the past. The win was in the past. So from that standpoint, it really doesn't matter that the Cougs are off to a 6-0 start for the first time since 2001, like I said, and bowl eligible. No less that there's only 2 Pac-12 teams that remain unbeaten after 6 weeks. We can't be comfortable 6-0. They've got to keep winning 1 week at a time, like I said, and not listen to the outside noise. And, I mentioned, hey, how about linebacker Jahad Woods, the real deal? That is just, he's amazing, just incredible. We're banged up, we can't overstate the magnitude of losing middle linebacker Peyton Pallure for the season, and of course now it's alarming that Isaac Dotson left the Oregon game in the first quarter with an injury, unspecified, didn't return. But the stellar play of redshirt freshman linebacker Jahad Woods helped seal the deal. Following a performance against SC where he got Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week, not bad. Jahad once again blew us away last Saturday night. And Woods was the third leading tackler with 7 tackles, including 1.5 for loss. And so he almost forced a fumble on Oregon's opening drive when he attempted to strip the ball from Royce Freeman at the end of really their fourth down. But Freeman was ruled down before the ball popped out. So Woods is just getting started, okay? We're just loaded up. And, our defense should be taken real seriously. It's funny. A lot of our opponents, talk about the air raid coming to town. They really, unless they study a lot, it's really our defense this year, right? Our offense has been clicking, but lately it's, we need to get really beef up the offense and just step up. So in the win over SC, the defense showed that, they are forced to be reckoned with, like I said, and with this performance against Oregon, it erases any doubt that USC was a fluke, right? So defense is good. It's great. It's been the difference for the Cougs this season, especially when the offense is at its lowest. Grinch is a big reason why the Cougs are 6-0, no question about it. And how long are we going to be able to keep Grinch? That's really another day and another topic. But real quick on that topic, head coaching jobs like Oregon State, which doesn't really have a big brand name, and Washington State, for years didn't. But I think we've got the best logo in the United States, and if we keep on winning year after year, we're going to have our brand identified. And I just feel sorry for Oregon State and what happened to Anderson, Coach Anderson. But that job's open, and that Alex Grinch is going to be at least on a short list somewhere in the United States if it's not Corvallis. So that's another topic, and I kind of wish that Mr. Paul Allen was a hardcore Coug alum, a Coug fan, big time. Kind of like what Nike has done to Oregon. It would be great if we just had a donor step up and take care of Mr. Grinch. He's already $630K his salary. Wouldn't it be nice to just give him a couple $100K more a year just to retain him? So that's my concern, is to keep Grinch. So hey, interesting how deep we are. The Cougs played played the Ducks without defensive end Nambi Aguayo, who hasn't played in 2 weeks. If you haven't noticed, Leach doesn't talk about injuries, so it's kind of quiet. Also, we played most of the game. Of course, Pelur's out, but we played most of the game without Dotson and Nate DeRuyter. By the way, cornerback Darian Moulton also didn't play the second half. I think he's got an injury to his arm. Yet the Cougs, we still managed to hold on to the Ducks to 277 yards, almost half of their season average of 537 offensive yards. Sure, Oregon was, led by freshman quarterback, making his first career start, but you can't discount how effective Washington State was on defense. Another big stat, 0 for 3 on fourth downs. The defense simply wouldn't give up on the conversion. Also impressive was how the Ducks tried to team up against Hercules Mataafa. As a result, we got production from many others. That's cool. So the Cougs' 4 sacks came from 4 different guys: Hunter Dale, Frankie Louvu, Dylan Hansen, and Dylan Sherman. So, in addition, we've limited running backs. We limited running back Royce Freeman to only 62 rushing yards. That's stellar. I mean, taking down Royce Freeman to only 62 rushing yards. Wow. So in the first half of the Oregon game, we didn't have a first down, in which I can't believe we did not have a first down. We played relatively not great, but good enough to win. And that's a top 10 team. When you can win when you're not playing your best, that's a top 10 team. I'll take that. I'll take that any day. Back in the day, we would just play much better. We'd have to play much better to beat Oregon. Today we played mediocre. On Saturday we played mediocre and beat Oregon, and we'll be right. So that's kind of the situation. It's just a great. That's 3 in a row against the Ducks. I mean, when was the last time you could say we beat Oregon 3 years in a row? And for students going to Washington State right now, for kids over there that are in school, they don't know what it's like to lose to the Oregon Ducks. How about that? So. So that's amazing, isn't it? I know, right? So listen, we're going to be right back. We're going to talk about the California Golden Bears right next on the next half of the segment right here on the Podcast Coug.
Hey, Coug fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the Podcast Coug Radio Network. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show, featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at PodcastCoug.com.
Everybody, welcome back to the Podcast Coug. I am James Laurie, the Podcast Coug, and we're talking about the California Golden Bears, the Berkeley boys in Strawberry Canyon, right? The Cougs 6-0, 3-0 in the Pac-12. Bears, the Cal is 3-3 and 0-3 in the Pac-12. Friday night, another ESPN nighttime, Pac-12 at night, 7:30 at Cal Memorial Stadium. Strawberry Canyon, Berkeley. I've never been down there. I got to get down. I'm just going to go this year. I thought about it. Oh, man, Strawberry Canyon looks like a great stadium that nobody really shows up. Kind of like Stanford, quiet but beautiful. So ESPN 7:30. The line, Cougs are 14.5 staff. Coach Justin Wilcox is 3-3 in his first season at Cal. He was the former Husky defensive coordinator, and brings the defensive mindset to Cal. It's almost the opposite of that Bear Raid. Remember the Bear Raid with Sonny Dykes? Well, so Wilcox is a first-time head coach, and he's assembled, an experienced coaching staff with former Eastern Washington coach Bo Baldwin and as the offensive coordinator, and Fresno State coach Tim DeRuyter as the defensive coordinator. So the Golden Bears have already shown signs of life under Wilcox, who led them to a non-conference 3-0 start. So they won all their non-conferences, but they are 0-3 in the Pac-12, and so quarterback Ross Bowers, local here in King County from Bothell. He's a Coug, right? Bothell High School Cougars, that is, and he was like a 4-star. I don't think Leach gave him an offer at all. I think, a couple schools did, but he was he had pretty good. He went to the state championships at Bothell. He beat Skyline, so he has had some really good years. He's also plays basketball. Great athlete. Has been a real big asset for Cal, and he's pretty steady, big guy, and he was off to a 3-0 start. He's got a big arm, really talented guy, and he, if he gets hot, it could spark the Golden Bears if he gets hot. However, Bowers has struggled against Oregon. He struggled against the UW, and the Huskies held him to 80 passing yards. So I'm not real concerned at all. I think the team's going to be ready. We haven't seen at all any faltering mentally, and so I think the Cougs are going to be ready to play. I'm not concerned about Cal. This year they're in a totally rebuilding year, total rebuild, and they got running back Patrick Laird. Laird was a junior, He's a junior that leads the Bears with 5 touchdowns. Linebacker Devontae Downs, Downs has been a force for Cal this season. He leads Cal with 60 tackles, 3 sacks, and 4 quarterback hurries, and he also has got 2 interceptions and 2 forced fumbles. So that's Devontae Downs, his linebacker. Cal has a 65% success rate on 4th down conversions this season. They've converted 11 out of 17. The same Oregon offense that scored 45 points on Cal 2 weeks ago managed just 10 points against Washington State on Saturday. So, meanwhile, Cal's offense has gone all but silent, being shut out last week by the Huskies. Well, not shut out, but 38-7 in Montlake. Huskies, winning 38-7 over Cal. So not much of a game, not much of a competitive game. So over the 3 games, Cal was first in the nation in takeaways, but since has dropped to number 11 with 13. And, the question, what does Coach Wilcox think of the Cougs Speedy D? And so here's a couple of comments that Wilcox has made. He says the Cougs, Grinch, the defense, they give you a lot of different looks. Grinch does a great job in terms of mixing things up. He's got they've got a lot of that pre-snap movement. They disguise their coverages and they bring a lot of different people on. They have a lot of guys, different ways, different guys, and getting to you. They've done a nice job at giving guys issues. So giving people issues, really. So anyway, it's here we are. And hey, James Williams has showed glimpses, by the way, these past couple of 3 games, but just glimpses. We're waiting for a big breakout with James Williams. I'd like to see James Williams with a breakout against Cal. I think he's ready to do it. Step up, man. Williams it's been a while since we've just seen him torch it, run it. And I think he's going to have a breakout game. He's due for it, and I think he can do it with against Cal. A couple things, the stupid personal fouls, those calls need to be eliminated. I still think the offensive line can do better. And, I am impressed, though, with the team's resiliency, going on the road, winning in a loud, hostile environment like Autzen Stadium. That was impressive. They didn't falter there. They're going against adversity. I think they're fine. I think that's great. A little bit and I mentioned before, we're being hit a little bit by the injury bug, just like every other team is. I mean, everybody's got injuries this time of year. So, Leach doesn't talk about it, but, we've got good depth that's been hit us hard on the linebacker area. So see what happens. I think we're going to be fine. Let's take a look, though, at our future schedules. Besides Cal, after Cal, we've got Colorado at home for homecoming coming up right after Cal. That should be fun. And then we got Arizona at Tucson, Stanford at home for Dad's weekend. So really it's, the last two home games is the Buffaloes, Colorado's at home for homecoming, and then Stanford, the Cardinal, for Dad's weekend. And then we've got, we're at Utah, and we're at the Huskies at UW for the AC, at Montlake for the AC. So that kind of finishes out our schedule for the year, and kind of like, let's talk about this. So Cal, I say, of course, win. We're gonna, win, right? Nobody knows the future, but I just can't see us losing to Cal. Colorado, they are having some serious trouble this year. They lost a lot of good senior guys from last year's team, and I see us beating Colorado at home for homecoming. At Arizona, that could be a trap game. Arizona can beat anybody, and almost anybody, I think, and I'm a little concerned about Arizona. Stanford at home, of course, that's also a concern. That's not a gimme for Stanford. And then, of course, Utah is going to be difficult. So, and of course, Montlake. So, can we run the table to the AC? Yeah. It's very, very possible, and we're just going to take one game at a time. It's the only thing we can do, just focus on the next game, and that's it, not look literally ahead. So here we are, and this is where we're at, right? So, hey, that's about it for the Podcast Coug, and listen, you guys, we're going to have a great time on Saturday night, right? So, Friday night. Friday night game, our second Friday night ESPN game of the year, 7:45. Right? So have a great Friday night. We're going to catch you next week. And again, have a great Friday night, and go Cougs.
You've been listening to the Podcast Coug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the Podcast Coug Radio Network. Find us at PodcastCoug.com.